Welcome back to Speak Up Queen, the podcast where we empower, uplift, and celebrate women who have reclaimed their voices to inspire others. Today we are thrilled to welcome Jen Johnson, a dynamic coach, motivator, and champion for women everywhere. Jen is here to challenge the status quo and redefine what it means to live boldly and unapologetically.
Mm.
Jen knows firsthand what it's like to rewrite your story and chase after your dreams at any stage of life. From helping women set boundaries to building confidence, she's on a mission to empower others to step out of societal boxes and embrace a life without limits. Get ready for an inspiring conversation as Jen shares her passion for helping women prioritize themselves, live authentically, and embrace their full potential. So let's give a warm welcome to the incredible Jen Johnson.
Ooh, thank you. That gave me goosebumps. I'm gonna have to take you everywhere with me now to do that introduction.
Jen, what was the most challenging limiting belief you had to overcome, and how did breaking free from it help you reclaim your voice?
Such a great question. I think that probably the biggest one for me, and when I really took this one on, it changed the trajectory of my life, was I'm not smart enough. I grew up struggling in school. I grew up, this was in the 80s and 90s. But, in the late 80s, and nobody was really talking about ADHD. And so to have a doctor, in elementary school diagnose me with ADHD I felt like there was something really wrong with me. And so I wouldn't take my medicine. I wouldn't receive, not that there was a lot of help then, but any help that was tried to offer to me, I wouldn't receive it because I was convinced that there was nothing wrong with me. And so I really struggled through school. I struggled through elementary school and middle school. And by the time I reached high school, I almost didn't graduate because I had poor attendance, and because my grades were really poor. And I was making up classes after graduation to, fill in for that diploma. And so after I got out of high school, there was no way I was going to college because I barely graduated high school. So what made me think that I could take on college? And I really I really truly lived with that until my 30s, until shoot, I might have been 40, that I just really let that limiting belief hold me small and hold me in spaces that I now know I was too big for. And I was doing a women's workshop, and it was like a 3-day women's workshop, almost retreat style. And we had a partner, they called it a sacred sister. And I was sitting with my sacred sister, and we were just sitting there talking, and we were really opening up about the deeply held beliefs that we had about ourselves that weren't serving us. And I'm even going to start crying now. I said, I don't think I'm smart enough to go back to school. And I think that because I think this, I haven't taken chances and I haven't taken risks on anything in my life. And there was something so powerful in me releasing that and me verbalizing that to another person. It was like it no longer had this hold on me anymore. And I think it was within 3 months, I I left my job. Like, I stepped down from my job that I had. I went to the local community college and I registered for classes, and I started college just a few weeks after that. And I didn't know how I was going to do it because at the time I was a single parent. And so I didn't know how I was going to work a part-time job and go to school and take care of my kid. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I knew that I was supposed to do it. And I just knew that everything was going to be okay because I was following this purpose and this calling, even though I didn't know what it was then. And so my first semester back in school was January of 2020, and which we all know what happened after that. So, but it was January of 2020. And even though midway through my semester, our campus shut down due to COVID and everything transitioned online. So, all of the resources that I previously had, I no longer had. I still graduated my first semester back in college after 20 plus years with a 4.0 GPA, and I was on the dean's list. And I was so proud of myself. Like that, they sent it in an email because it was COVID. But I got this plaque or this certificate in my email, and I still have it. Like it was because I was so proud of myself. And it was in that moment I rewrote that story about not being smart enough. And that small victory was the single thing that changed the rest of my life.
Wow, that's incredible, powerful. Thank you for sharing that transformation.
Yeah.
It's amazing how breaking free from those beliefs can really unlock so much potential. How
Mhm.
do you think that shift has impacted the way you show up in the world today?
Because I started creating evidence that I can do the things that I say I'm going to do. And it's not that it never comes with challenges anymore, but that was one that was one piece in the large stack of evidence I have now that I am capable and that I am smart enough and that I can do the things that I say that I want to do, and that I am not an imposter, that I do fit in here. I do belong here. All of those things. Like this is my space and I'm going to take it all up. And so it's taken a series of events for me to get here, but that was the single thing that really started it. That was the catapult. And, it's not, do I still have some doubt sometimes? Sure. Do I still feel, my husband is super intelligent and he uses words sometimes that I swear are not even in the dictionary. And sometimes I'll have to say, can you tell me the meaning of that word? But I don't let it, I don't use it, I don't give it the meaning of I'm smart, I'm unintelligent. I give it the meaning of he's very smart. He reads something and remembers it, and that's such a gift for him. I may not have that vocabulary, but let me talk about all the gifts that I do have. So I no longer let it have that hold over me that it used to. And, since then, as an adult, I actually just, I guess it's been about a year now. I saw a doctor and they did diagnose me with ADHD, and I've been on medication for about a year. And it has been like before and after. I mean, truly, it has been before and after. And I'm such an advocate for that. And I know, people like to use non-medical ways to treat things, and I fully support that. And what I want to say is, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you taking a medication that simply supports your brain and operating the way that other people's brain do. Because I look back and I'm like, I cannot believe I struggled for so long. I mean, there would be times that I would sit there when I was in school and I would read a paragraph and couldn't tell you what that paragraph was about. And I would have to read it and read it and read it. And I would just sit there and cry as I'm reading these paragraphs because it just wouldn't stay in my brain. And the ability to focus and retain, and like now it's like, oh, I don't know how to do something, let me look it up online, let me Google it, let me look it up on YouTube. It's like there's nothing I can't learn now just because this one little thing just flipped a switch in my brain and it works so differently now. And it's so exciting, and I'm super passionate about it. I think that's often why I attract clients who have ADHD as well, because I think we all just need somebody to say that it's okay. So I know that wasn't a part of the original question. I went off on a little tangent there.
That's That's what Speak Up Queen is all about. A safe space for women to share their stories. So
Yes.
don't feel guilty or anything or bad. Can you share when someone's words or actions made you feel small and how you found the strength to rise above it?
Ooh, good question. I think actually I had a situation today. I actually had a situation today. I am entering into a partnership with another entrepreneur to facilitate a retreat, and we're tidying up the contract right now. And there was something that I was having just some issues with some of the dates that we had decided on, and that part's not important. But I was communicating this to her, and when she responded to me, how I received her message was, well, this is what you're doing wrong. Here's what you should do to fix it so that you can avoid all these things, and gave me a long list of things. And I received it as her saying, these are all the things that you're doing wrong, and here's what you need to fix. And I I knew I immediately felt backed up. I immediately felt like I was being talked down to, and I was immediately upset. And the two things that helped me most in processing that was, one is I gave myself space. I gave myself space to just let those feelings move through me. And I was really curious about them. Why is this bothering you so bad? Why are you taking her words so personally? And I was just really curious with myself. And and I would say the second thing I did is I was really transparent with her. And I said, I think this needs to be a phone conversation, because we were just like memoing back and forth, like voice memo. And I said, I think this gets to be a conversation, because I didn't want it to be taken out of context. And so we hopped back on the phone, and I shared with her with what I heard her say in the message. And in that moment, she was able to say, that is not what I meant. That's not what I was trying to deliver. Here's what I was trying to deliver. And so we were able to come to an understanding there, about what her intention was and what I heard. And just stating, in that moment, I felt like you were just pushing all of this advice on me, instead of letting me have this opportunity to learn where I had made a mistake, and just being transparent about that. And, we worked it out, right? Like, we worked it out. We talked on the phone, we worked things out, and everything's great. But what I didn't do is I didn't let the feelings consume me. I didn't let them overtake me. I wasn't reactive. I didn't send her a message back, telling her in response to what I thought she was saying. I really allowed myself the space to have those feelings. And then I was just transparent about it. And it was so easy, right? All I said is, this is what I heard you say. And I'm not sure if that's what you meant. And then that gave her the opportunity to clarify, so that we were able to move through it seamlessly. But I think just so often we hear things through the lenses of our own experiences. And I do have a long history of, I was married prior, so I'm in my second marriage. I was married previously. My previous husband, he did used to talk down to me a lot. And it was his way or the highway. And he was kind of condescending and all of those things. So I have a history of people that have treated me this way. Therefore, that was my go-to reaction, but that wasn't. So instead of just assuming that was her go-to reaction, I gave her the opportunity to say it again, so I could hear it through the lens of her experience and through her communication.
And sometimes we, like you said, we do react on the things that happened to us in the past. It is like,
Yes.
and then it's like just reacting. And that's so, the advice you just gave, give it a pause, let the feelings come and
Yeah.
go, and
Yeah.
then just give the other person opportunities. The same as boundaries. It's a safe space. It's for you to
Yeah.
feel safe, but it's not to block someone and to just let them go. And let them go. I've
Mhm.
made this decision. Now you are not treating me this way. And you're is a place for vulnerability and saying, I didn't
Yeah.
understand. And that's just amazing how you have handled it. So definitely,
And it's such a gift too to have entered into that conversation. Like you said, it was a safe space to enter into that conversation, knowing with a person who would say, okay, I hear how you heard it. Let me clarify what I meant. And not making me wrong, not discounting what I said, but choosing to hear me, to hear my feelings, to hear my thoughts so that we could fix it. And I feel that if you can be that for somebody as well, it is truly such a gift because I have such a hard time with conversations that could be confrontational or challenging. I have a really hard time. I have a hard time with that still to this day. And so it takes me a lot to step into those conversations. And so for people like who can relate to what I'm saying, when you step into that conversation with somebody who's willing to hear you and hear you, not hear you to respond to you, not to hear you, to prove their point, but to truly hear you, it's such a gift. So really being that for somebody else.
what safety resources, spaces, or tools have most impacted your healing journey?
Have most impacted,
Your healing journey.
I'm sorry, what's the last word you say?
What safety resources, spaces,
Uh-huh.
or tools have most impacted your healing journey?
Oh, healing. Okay. I
Yes.
apologize for that.
No, that's my
Mm,
accent. That's my accent.
yeah.
I've got a strong
I
one.
love it. It's fun when accents collide. Um, that's a really great question. I think there's a few things. There's a few things. One, just as I shared, is, having the gift of somebody who is willing to sit and listen to hear you, although that's not always within my control. Giving myself the space to let the feelings move through me. And something that this might sound really silly. Something that I love to do, and I'm in the Midwest in the States. So we get 4 seasons here. So right now it's winter, should be snowing, but it's raining right now. And um I like to go stand outside. My husband taught me this. I like to go stand outside. I'll stand barefoot in the grass. It doesn't matter what the weather is. And if the sun's out, I really would just stand with my arms to my side and my face pointing up at the sky. And I just let the sun, beam on my face. I let my feet ground in the grass, in the dirt. If I have to cry, I cry, I take deep breaths, and that has been incredibly soothing for me. It's not my go-to in the winter time, but it can be. It's something that's incredibly soothing to me just to, release those emotions, release those feelings into the ground. Something that's also been really supportive for me is a support group meeting. So I am I am the child of two parents who are alcoholics. And so with that history has come, a lot of baggage, a lot of hurts from my childhood, a lot of patterns that I've grown up with that, this experience might have been with my mom, but when I see it in other people, I react the same way. So I have attended Adult Children of Alcoholics, which is a support group meeting, and that's been incredibly supportive for me to go to a space that's filled with people who have walked a very similar journey. And so much of what I've walked away from for those meetings is not not reacting to people because the way they're choosing to show up, the way that they're choosing to act has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the experience that they're in right now. And so in those moments, I'm able to just release it because I'm like, whoop, that is not about me. That's about something, but that is not about me. And it's really let me set things down instead of taking on the blame or reacting to them or heightening the situation. And so that's been something that's been incredibly supportive for me. So if you're somebody, so it's adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. And so it's not specifically just for children of addicts and alcoholics, but it is if you grew up in a family that had that type of dysfunction, you are welcome. And it's incredibly supportive to be surrounded by people that understand your journey. I would say those are probably my big ones. I'm trying to think if anything else is coming to my mind, but I think that's it.
What's one powerful lesson you've learned about self-worth? And how do you carry it with you as you continue to grow and inspire others?
My capacity to love other people is limited by my capacity to love myself. And I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, well, that's not true. That's dumb because I love my kid. Like I love him so much. Like there's nothing I wouldn't do. And then I really started thinking into it. It's like, well, okay, obviously I made that human. So I love him in a way that's very different. But I think about my partner, and do I looking at the ways and how I love him, right? It's like obviously like a very compassionate love, there's a very connected love, there's an intimate love, there's intimacy, right? There's when things are tough, when we're arguing, how do I show up for him? And if I am not if I am not connected to myself, if I am not connected to my heart, if I am not showing myself that type of compassion, how am I ever going to show it for somebody else? Because I don't know what it is. I can't show somebody an emotion that I myself don't know what it is. And I think that shows up a lot with intimacy and I mean intimacy too in like connectedness, but intimacy as well in the sexual nature. And so my ability to show him grace or show him forgiveness is because of my ability to do that for myself. My ability, like he is somebody I know if we have an argument and we're going to bed, he will not sleep all night long. He will be up all night long. And I know that about him. So I cannot let him go to bed with him thinking we are not okay. And so it could be something as simple as we're in bed and I just extend my leg and touch him because his love language is physical touch. And so he's like, okay, we're fine. And so he knows. And so he can rest at night. So it's like showing him that compassion. It's being that connected to him so that he knows those things. And I would say that that was probably one of the biggest lessons because it really made me look at how I treat myself. And then your children, they will also teach you about how you treat yourself because they repeat what you do. And I'm dealing with that right now. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my fault because he's watched me do this. So not only do I get to heal through that, do I get to work through that, but I also get to do it with him now. And it's much harder to explain it to a 10-year-old.
I've got an 11-year-old going on 18, so I feel you.
Yes. Yes.
I feel you. I actually, about 2 weeks ago, I actually at 2 a.m. I was Googling, wow, how is it normal for an 11-year-old to have an attitude like an 18-year-old? And they were like, yes, it's normal.
Yes.
You're not a bad mom. I was like, here I am, 2 a.m. searching if I'm a
Yes.
good mom. So yeah, I totally understand that.
Yep.
If you could tell your 17-year-old self one thing, what would it be and why?
Ooh, you're so good at this. Oh, I would tell her that she is perfect the way she is, that the things that are different about her are the things that are special about her. So I'm 6 foot tall. I'm very tall for a girl, and I'm aware of that. And, I was made fun of a lot. And I always thought that was something that was wrong with me. And so to be bold and take up space and to be big was contradictory to me because I just wanted to be small. I wanted to be small physically and shrink myself to fit into these spaces with these people. And so the idea of like taking up space felt it it felt like it was something that I resisted. And so I would tell her that all the things that she thinks are different and wrong are the very things that make her special and qualified and powerful. And they're all of the things that are going to make her the woman that she turns into. I would tell her that her journey is special, that although it was painful, it was special. And I would tell her how awesome she's going to be when she's 45. Yeah. Oh, that was a good question. Oh, you got me good there.
I am, I must say, when I ask these questions, it is really because that 17-year-old version of us were a young adult who didn't know anything. She didn't know. And we as adults now, we had to go walk the walk of, we had to figure it out because
Right,
no, there wasn't so many resources when I was 17 years old. There wasn't
right,
safe spaces for young adults who've been abused to just have a community because we were feeling alone because no one
right.
would get us. So to just heal that inner part, inner child of us and showing, I think that they are just proud of us for the women that we have become. Even though the
Mhm.
journey wasn't sunshine and roses, but it was so worth it. And
Yeah,
I wish that there was like an app where we could have a picture of our 17-year-olds and a picture of us now just hugging, physically hugging each other. Oh,
so good.
I have like
Yes.
actually goosebumps because
Yeah,
that
yeah.
because that 17-year-old, she's part of us, that she's the reason sometimes that we have become this person that we are. So yeah, she is just, we can be proud of ourselves, definitely.
Hmm. I recently saw something on Facebook and it said, you should be proud of two people. Is that what it is? Your 17-year-old self and your 70-year-old self. You should want to impress two people. That's who it was. Or
Mm.
impress or be proud of your 17-year-old self and your 70-year-old self. And I thought that was really good because that 17-year-old version of me, like, she's here and I hope that she's looking at me and she's so proud. And then that 70-year-old version of me, like, I want to look back and be like, girl, you did it. You did the thing. I want her to be so proud.
And I'm halfway to 70. I always tell my
Yeah.
husband, I'm halfway to 70. Do you know? And he's like, oh, I don't know why you said, but I'm like, there's 35 years of me. I don't, because I've worked in an old age home, and so many of those old people died with their dreams. They were
Hmm.
like on their deathbed, they wish they did this, they wish they did that.
Yep.
I don't want to be that one. I want to be the one
No.
that's on my deathbed saying, I've tried this, I failed here, but oh my goodness, I didn't give up. I've made this
Hmm.
movement, and I want to be really proud of myself when I am dying. And
Yeah.
I'm actually proud of myself now too, but just that's going to be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's why I'm so passionate because yes, I was halfway to 70 when I was like, when I had my son. And in the few years that followed that is really when I decided to change my life. And yeah, I'm 45 now and it seems I catch my own judgment sometimes, but it's like, yeah, I'm 45. I'm about to buy my first house, right? I've started my own business. I have a child. I have a husband. Like, I have all of these things that I started so much later in life. But it doesn't make them wrong just because I started them later in life. It just means I have now, I from now moving forward to enjoy them. And when I was making that decision to go back to college, I said to my girlfriend, I said, I'm going to be 50 years old by the time I graduate. And she said, You're right. You may be 50 years old. She said, But you're going to be 50 years old one way or another. And so, do you want to be 50 years old with that college degree? Or do you want to be 50 years old and where you are right now? And so, like, I say that to the people, to the ladies listening, like the thing that's on your heart, that desire that you've always had, yeah, it may take 5, 10, years to get there, but it also may take one, it also may take only two. And you're going to get there anyways. So do you want to get there knowing that you gave it all it had to be the person and have the dream, to have the goals that you always wanted? Or do you want to be right where you are, just a few years older? I'm like, I don't want to do that.
Definitely not. How do you define thriving today? And what mindset shifts or practices help you embrace that definition?
Hmm. How do I define thriving? That's such a good question because I feel like it could mean so much. So I'm checking in with myself on what that really means to me. It means every day when I wake up, I can't wait to jump out of bed. Because it actually doesn't matter the size of my paycheck. It doesn't matter if I'm in a house or, an apartment. It doesn't matter what kind of car I drive. Am I happy and excited every morning when I wake up? And I used to be a person who could not start functioning until they had a minimum of 1 cup of coffee, perhaps two. And I drank some strong coffee. I could not start functioning until I had 45 minutes to an hour in the morning to myself with my coffee. And what that turned into is I was just procrastinating for starting my day. Like, yes, is it nice to sit and enjoy a cup of coffee in the morning when you don't have anything to do? 100%. But that's not what I was doing. I was procrastinating on my day. Now I get right up and I go directly to the shower. I get dressed for the day, and then I go get my kid up from school because I'm so excited to start my day. Like, all right, let's go do this. And I spend the first hour of my day now after I'm showered and everything with my cup of coffee, and I'm sitting with my kid while he's having breakfast, and maybe he's watching a show, or and I'm pointing this way because like he usually sits right there. I maybe he's watching a show, maybe I'm tinkering on my computer, but we're still together, and I'm in my day and I'm working on and towards everything I'm up to, both for that day and in the long term. And I think that you can be thriving no matter what stage you're in your life. And it can look a little bit different from everybody. I was thriving 3 years ago when I only made a couple $1,000s, in a year in my coaching business. But that I was really thriving when I made that same amount of money that I made in the whole year in the first 2 months, and then I was thriving again when I tripled my income, so like I'm thriving in all of those stages. Just the results maybe look the same. And so I think that's a big thing too, is don't be attached to the result, be attached to the journey. Because that's where my thriving has been, is in my journey. And I think there was a second part to the question, and I don't know if I answered it.
No, I think you've covered it. Yeah,
Okay.
you've covered it so beautifully. And like you said, it doesn't matter what thriving means to each one of you. I still remember about 3 years ago, we moved to another town and we didn't have money. We really didn't have food. We didn't have money. We had $4. And I still have that receipt. We had $4 on our name. And I went to Coles and I bought two bread. And this lady, this cashier, I think she knew that there was no money to buy another bread for our home. And she gave me back the $2 and she said, come next time, come so that you can have another bread to buy. And that $2 is still, that slippy is there. And when we bought our car, for me, it was not a thing to show off. It was a thing from where we have been, where we came
Yes.
from, to how hard it was. It was on a vision board when we were in 2019, when we just arrived in Australia. I created this vision board. And it took us 4 years to get our dream car. But just to remind ourselves that we can stay humble, but and feel so grateful for that journey, because now looking back, I am like, whoa, I'm so grateful for a pantry full of food, a warm bed, a bed to sleep in, clothes to wear, a safe space, small things. And it's just being grateful and, like you said, enjoying the journey and embracing everything, and just know that you can get there. You can really get there.
Absolutely.
The last question. What made you decide to be featured on Speak Up Queen? And how does it feel knowing that there's a safe space for women to share their stories and inspire others?
I think really that's just it, because I'm a firm believer that the person that needed to hear this is going to hear this today. There's somebody who needs to hear that they can leave their job as a single mom and go have the career that they really want. Or there's somebody that needs to hear that the things that are different about them are the things that are special about them. Somebody needs to hear that today, and they're going to. And to the people that are maybe just like, yeah, I'm listening, like something at some time, they're going to be having an experience. They're going to be like, oh, I remember that thing that I heard on Speak Up Queen when she said, your capacity to love others is limited by your capacity to love yourself, right? Like we hear the things that we're supposed to take with us when we're supposed to take them with us. And really, and we talked about this a little bit before, and you said this is a safe space, and this is a safe space for people to come and talk and cry. And boy, I've done all of those things. And I think that it's so important that we continue to create those safe spaces for one another. Back to the conversation we had with where I had to talk to my friend today, and I was telling her what I heard versus what she said and how I felt. So grateful that she held that space for me, because that hasn't always been the case. My history tells me that if I come to you with something that's bothering me, it's going to result in an argument. So to have those people say, you can come here, you can talk to me, you can tell me the truth, you can tell me what's really bothering you, and we're still going to be cool. So creating that all over this world. Could you imagine? Could you imagine if we lived in a world that was full of safe spaces? I mean, I we just had in the States, it was in Wisconsin yesterday, we had another school shooting. What if the person that did that had safe spaces? And I saw something that there's been something like 300 school shootings in the United States this year.
Wow.
You know, all of those people didn't have safe spaces. All of those people that choose to do that had something in them that was so painful that this was their way out. This was how to make things better. So what if we lived in that world where we had those type of safe spaces everywhere? I just think that things could be very different.
And that's what Speak Up Queen is all about, is creating a
Yeah.
movement. Creating a
Mhm.
movement so that everyone, I mean, I am here in 6 weeks interviewing, publishing 100 episodes in 6 weeks. And I
Amazing.
started from scratch. I didn't even have a clue how to do a podcast. I still don't know about the analytics, and I don't know what about all of these things. I don't want to know. All I do know is I love hosting. I love creating a place for women. And that's all that matters for me, is having
Yeah,
a
it's
safe space
beautiful.
for women. That's it.
Mhm. Mhm.
So young. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing your powerful and inspiring story with us today.
Thank you.
Your journey reminds us of the strength and the courage it takes to heal, grow, and thrive. So, to everyone
Mm,
tuning in, remember your voice and your story have the power to inspire and create change. If today's
mhm,
episode resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. Until next time,
mhm.
Queens, keep speaking up and embracing your power.